Excel Academy, Education Hub. Listening Day 2 by Sohail Sir.
The Haunting of Ashwood Manor. Megan had always been fascinated by old houses. There was something about the creaking floorboards, the dusty chandeliers, and the faded wallpaper that made her feel like she was stepping into another world. So when she saw the listing for Ashwood Manor, she couldn't resist. The grand Victorian mansion, nestled deep in the woods, was everything she'd ever dreamed of. The price was surprisingly low, but Megan didn't think much of it. The realtor, a nervous man in his late 50s, seemed eager to get the sale over with. He handed her the keys with a warning. "People say this place is haunted," he said, avoiding her gaze. "But you don't believe in that sort of thing, do you?" Megan laughed it off. Ghost stories were just that, stories. She loved the idea of living in a house with a history, even if that history included a few spooky tales. She signed the papers and moved in the following week. The first few days in Ashwood Manor were peaceful. Megan spent her time exploring every room, marveling at the old furniture and the intricate woodwork. But as the sun set on the third day, a cold draft swept through the house. She dismissed it as a quirk of the old building and went to bed. That night, she was awakened by the sound of footsteps echoing through the halls. At first, she thought it was her imagination, but the footsteps grew louder, more deliberate. Megan's heart pounded as she sat up in bed, listening. The footsteps stopped just outside her door. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice trembling. There was no answer, only silence. She waited for what felt like an eternity before the footsteps continued down the hall, fading into the distance. The next morning, Megan tried to convince herself that it had been a dream. But she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of the lights, made her jump. She decided to explore the house again, this time searching for anything that might explain the noises. In the attic, hidden behind a stack of old trunks, she found a door she hadn't noticed before. It was small and unassuming, almost as if someone had tried to conceal it. Megan hesitated, then opened it. The door led to a narrow staircase, spiraling down into darkness. A musty smell wafted up from below, and she gagged at the scent of decay. But curiosity got the better of her, and she descended the stairs, her flashlight flickering in the gloom. At the bottom, she found herself in a small, windowless room. The walls were lined with shelves, each filled with dusty jars. She shone her flashlight on one of the jars and recoiled in horror. Inside was a shriveled, human heart, preserved in some sort of liquid. Megan's breath quickened as she realized what she was looking at, an entire collection of human organs, meticulously preserved and stored away. She stumbled back, her flashlight beam landing on a table in the center of the room. On the table was an old, leather-bound book. She opened it with trembling hands and began to read. The book detailed the grisly experiments of a man named Dr. Elias Ashwood, the mansion's original owner. According to the journal, Dr. Ashwood had been obsessed with prolonging life. He had conducted unspeakable experiments on the servants who had once lived in the house, harvesting their organs in a twisted attempt to unlock the secrets of immortality. Megan felt sick to her stomach. She turned to leave, but froze when she heard the door at the top of the stairs creak open. Footsteps descended slowly, deliberately. She backed into a corner, her heart racing. A figure emerged from the shadows, dressed in a tattered suit. His skin was pale, his eyes sunken, and his lips curled into a ghastly smile. It was Dr. Ashwood, his body impossibly preserved by the very experiments he had documented. "You found my work," he rasped, his voice a whisper of death. "And now, you'll join them." Megan screamed and bolted for the stairs, but the doctor moved with unnatural speed, blocking her path. His bony fingers wrapped around her arm, cold as ice. She struggled, but his grip was unbreakable. As he dragged her toward the table, Megan's mind raced. She remembered the book, the notes about how the doctor's experiments had failed because of a flaw in the preservation process. With a surge of adrenaline, she grabbed one of the jars and smashed it against the wall. The liquid inside splashed onto Dr. Ashwood, and he howled in agony. His skin began to wither and crack, his body collapsing in on itself. Megan didn't wait to see what happened next. She ran up the stairs, slamming the door behind her. She fled the house, not stopping until she reached the road. Breathless and shaking, she turned back to see Ashwood Manor looming in the distance. The lights in the windows flickered, then went out. Megan never returned to Ashwood Manor. The house was eventually condemned, left to rot in the woods. But sometimes, on a quiet night, locals say they can still hear footsteps echoing through the halls, and see a flicker of light in the attic window.